The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon. We're now going to start today's presentation and discussion on the upcoming changes to the CPH exam. If you haven't had a chance to take a look at our new content outline, be sure to locate it on our website under Get Certified after today's discussion. For the sake of time, I'm going to go all the way through today's presentation without a break, and we'll take questions at the end. As you have questions, please use our question feature on your webinar screen at any time. I'll get through as many as I can before our hour is up. And if you have questions after the webinar, you can send them to info@nbphe.org. I'm Allison Foster, President of the NBPHE. First, on behalf of the National Board of Public Health Examiners Board of Directors, I would like to welcome you all to today's presentation. As you can see, our board has members representing a number of public health membership organizations. We also have a dozen at-large board members who are certified in public health. This is our 10th year of CPH certification. Over the past decade, we've had nearly 10,000 examinees. We are very happy to have you with us as we celebrate this important milestone. Today, we're going to be talking about the change candidates can expect when the exam changes on January 1st, 2019. I hope what we'll present will give you a better understanding of how big of a change the new exam format will be, as well as how your students can prepare. But first, I'd like to run through some recent updates. The CPH program has made several exciting changes over the recent years, and it would help first to make sure that we're all on the same page. We'll start by looking at our eligibility. When the CPH was first launched in 2008, alumni of CPH-accredited schools and programs were and still are eligible to take the CPH exam. That has not changed. In 2012, after a pilot, students of CPH-accredited schools and programs became eligible to take the CPH exam. A more recent change is the NBPHE no longer dictates which classes students must have completed or at what point they should be in their degree program before they are eligible. It is up to each school and program to decide when students can take the CPH exam. As always, students who pass the CPH exam are in provisional CPH status until they've graduated. In 2016, after a pilot period, candidates who have a bachelor's degree in any area and at least 5 years work experience in public health are eligible to take the CPH exam. This is the third of our 3 routes to eligibility. We've launched a new registration and verification portal, which makes it easier for candidates to apply and track their status. The school and program designated verifiers who approve the eligibility of their students and alumni also have better tools to track the status of their candidates. We no longer have testing windows. Candidates can sit for the exam Monday through Saturday, 12 months a year. We made this change in part to accommodate various academic schedules. Our testing network has also changed. Our testing partner, PSI, moved the CPH exam to an expanded testing network in March 2018. Candidates in the United States can now test at over 300 testing centers around the country. We also offer options for candidates wishing to test outside the United States. Candidates who sit for the exam at a computer-based testing center receive their results on site. They receive pass-fail results as well as a detailed report of how they performed in each domain before they leave the testing center. Currently, we allow candidates who fail the exam to retake the exam as frequently as they wish. We recently lowered the retake fee to $150 per retake attempt. As always, all passing candidates receive a hard copy certificate and a lapel pin. They also receive a link to a customized URL, which leads to a personalized digital certificate. We encourage CPH to add this to their social media profiles and email signature so others can learn more about the CPH. One additional development is a number of schools and programs are now requiring their graduating students to take the CPH exam. I believe several more schools and programs will be making this decision by 2019 as they are looking to align with the new CEF criteria. This year, we launched interactive dashboards and reports that allow CEF-accredited schools and programs of public health to track exam trends and to view their students and alumni scores against the national average. These dashboards and reports are available on the ASPPH Data Center portal, along with a number of other valuable resources. This is one look at an institution's alumni and student average scores against the national average. You'll notice that filters along the side allow for a deeper dive into the data. Finally, you can use the CPH score report to view individual test scores by CPH domain. Before we go any further, I'd like to take just one more moment and review some language that we often use when discussing the exam process. We often call an exam a form. A form implies there are multiple versions of the exam over time and refers to a specific version of the exam. The domains are simply the way in which the exam content is organized. A task is a specific professional activity. The content outline is the map of the topics covered by the exam. The content outline is organized into domains, which each have unique tasks. Finally, we typically use the term item instead of the word question. An item is the combination of the question and the correct and incorrect answer options, which we call the key, stem, and distractors. So let's take a moment to talk about why the CPH exam, or content outline for the CPH exam, is changing. One of the major drivers is accreditation requirements. There's an accreditation body for certifying organizations, the National Commission for Certifying Agencies. The NBPHE has been interested in pursuing accreditation for some time, but would not be successful using our current content outline. The NCCA requires certifying bodies to base their exam on the results of a job task analysis. Knowing about this requirement, we began planning for a job task analysis in 2014. But accreditation is not the only reason for the change. It's always been important to the NBPHE that we are true to our mission to professionalize the field of public health. In order to do this, the content of the exam needs to be reflective of the responsibilities and duties of the public health workforce. A job task analysis was the most reliable way to ensure our exam meets the needs of the entire field of public health. So now that you're up to date, let's talk about how much the CPH exam is changing. Specifically, we are going to talk about why this is a difficult question to answer, what is not changing, and what is. This slide shows the domains of the CPH exam through December 31st, 2018. Undoubtedly, the domains of the current CPH exam look very familiar to you. The CPH exam has been based on these domains since its inception. And the date the CPH exam will change is January 1, 2019. At that time, all examinees will test under the new content outline. A lot about the CPH exam will remain the same. The length of the exam in terms of time and the number of questions will remain the same. Exam questions will continue to be in the format of multiple choice, single best answer. The purpose of the exam to assess the competency of a public health professional will not change. While we start to talk about the change, let's now take a closer look at the job task analysis process. A job task analysis can have many purposes, including the development of the basis for a certifying exam. The job task analysis starts with a survey of those working in a profession to determine what common tasks they perform. A job task analysis should answer the question, what does one need to be able to do to perform competently in this profession? We formed an advisory committee of stakeholders from many organizations across the field. Many advisory committee members were mid-level supervisors, closely in touch with the responsibilities of their employees and workforce. The advisory committee work began by developing the survey instrument. They met several times for 2-day meetings and then many times by phone to craft the survey. The final survey was 200 multiple choice questions about day-to-day responsibilities with a rating scale of never performed, 0, to essential, which was a 4. It might help to take a quick look at a few examples of the job task analysis tasks. As you can see, they're specific and action-oriented. The survey was long and complex, so we were thrilled with the response. 8,100 individuals started the survey, and a full 4,850 completed the questions. Our psychometricians who helped us with the survey were surprised at the robust response and gave us their blessing that while we did not do a scientific sampling, we could feel comfortable that the response set was valid. The advisory committee spent the next year analyzing the results, making sure the results made sense and we did not have any significant gaps in the responses. The committee eliminated tasks that did not meet our ratings threshold, combined a few tasks that were very similar, and ultimately finalized the tasks that were to form the new content outline. If you wish to learn more about the job task analysis process, you may consider taking a look at the journal article we recently published in Public Health Reports. You can also download the initial job task analysis report found on our content outline page of our website. I do want to pause here for a moment and note that a database of the results of our job task analysis is available upon request. Any information that could identify an individual has been removed, but the remaining data set could be useful to those interested in workforce studies or looking at employment patterns across specific characteristics. So finally, after an extensive period of analysis, we presented in every possible venue we could think of to get feedback from public health practitioners. We also conducted dozens of webinars as well. What we were looking to achieve was identification of areas of public health we might have missed, and I'm glad to be able to report that the new content outline seemed to resonate with the various groups, but the feedback loop was absolutely essential to our process. So this slide shows the 10 domains of the new content outline. The domains have a various number of tasks associated with each, but each domain will represent 10% of the questions on the exam. They are evidence-based approaches to public health, communications, leadership, law and ethics, public health biology and human disease risk, collaboration and partnership, program planning and evaluation, program management, policy and public health, health equity, and social justice. Early on, we mapped out our new domains with other workforce studies and accreditation criteria, and I'm very happy to share that we found there was a lot of synergy between the new CPH domains and other competencies, domains, and accreditation criteria, such as the FAB standards and measures. Council of Linkages core competencies, ASTO Public Health wins, findings of the ASPPH Blue Ribbon Public Health Employers Advisory Board, and the competencies recommended by the ASPPH Framing the Future MPH report. Very recently, we mapped our domains as well as each task to a set of competencies recently developed by ASPHER, the Association of Schools of Public Health for the European region for the public health workforce. And as you can see here, there's also a great deal of similarity. And the competencies you are most likely interested in are the 2016 CEIF criteria for MPH programs. And we were pleased to see that indeed there was a great deal of overlap and similarity between our domains. And it was interesting that in each of these examples, the organizations approach development of their guidelines or criteria very differently, but somehow we've ended up very much in the same place. It's really exciting to see such synergy in the field. And I'd like to note that Kay Bender, FAB Executive Director, Laura Racer-King, CEIF Executive Director, and I recently authored a commentary for the Journal of Public Health Management and Practice, which was published in April. Now we're going to talk about the main question today. How much is the CPH exam going to change? As we take one more look at the new domains, I will try to answer that question so that you can advise your students. First, I want to acknowledge that it is hard to quantify how much the CPH exam will be changing. And I wish I could give you a very specific answer, but for several reasons I'm going to go into, it's not that simple. Instead, I'm going to present you with some information which should allow you to draw your own conclusions. As the expression goes, comparing the current content outline to the new content outline is a bit like comparing apples and oranges. And the reason for this is because each CPH exam is unique. The exam is continually changing. From year to year, there's no such thing as the exam. Our testing committee embarks on an annual process to revise and add questions so that the content remains contemporary and the questions continue to perform well. So the exam is always changing. Each year, we start with an item bank analysis when we review which items performed well, which did not, where we are low, and where we have a surplus. We then host a round of item writing, inviting volunteers to submit items, which will then be reviewed and possibly added to the exam. The item writers receive several trainings and then are given their item writing assignments. The submitted items are reviewed by our testing committee at a 2-day in-person meeting. Most of the items are revised at least once, and some never make it into the item bank at all. Later each year, a new form of the CPH exam is developed. Members of the form review committee review the new form to confirm they're in agreement with the individual questions and answers, as well as to assure the form as a whole is representative of the body of knowledge that we are testing. The form review committee meets for 2 days to make any final edits before the new form is made available to candidates. The last step is an analysis of how each item on the exam performs. We pre-test items before they're used for scoring, and then give the committee an opportunity to identify any items that did not perform as expected. Those items will either be revised and retested or pulled from the bank altogether. Following this process, we release a new version of the exam every year. Not only is the exam changing every year, we also have more than one form of the exam at any given time, and each form has a different set of questions. Because of these reasons, performance on the CPH exam has varied by domain over the years. Some domains are more difficult in some years than others, and the candidates taking the exam at any given time are stronger in some areas than others. And as you can see, this graph shows that there's no single domain that is consistently harder than another over each year. And there's no domain that is always easier than the others. Please keep in mind the pass score is on the total number of questions answered correctly, not by domain. But clearly, the overall difficulty of the CPH exam changes over time. Acknowledging that there's no perfect baseline to measure the change, let's look at what's not changing. We mapped our current bank of items to the new content outline in part to determine where we needed to write new items. Each item was mapped to the new tasks and domains by 2 individuals when there was agreement, and 3 when we needed to pull in a tiebreaker. Most of the items that are found in our exam bank will remain the same. We'll go into details about this a bit later, but as you can see, out of the 1,650 items in the item bank as of 2017, only 72 were deemed not applicable to the CPH exam. We will be writing new items, but as you can see, we had a lot of items that will carry over into the new bank. This graph shows the number of items per task that we had in our bank. As you can see, most of our items had at least a few items associated with it, meaning the content related to the exam could have appeared on one of the forms of the CPH exam. The average task had 32 items related to it, and some had as many as 120 items associated with it. Now please note, this does not mean the task with 120 items associated with it will appear more frequently than other tasks. This simply means we have a surplus associated with that task, which is not unusual. We always accept good items, even if they're submitted for tasks where we do not need new items. So sometimes we just end up with a surplus here and there. One question we've been asked is, where are the items related to the old domains and how do they map to the new exam? We systematically mapped each of the items from the current 13 domains to the new domains. As an example, this slide shows the items which were previously found in the domain Environmental and Occupational Health are now found in the 8 out of 10 domains, and also shows the specific tasks where they are found. So as you can see, while we no longer have a domain for environmental health questions are found throughout the exam. Because these slides are just too detailed for you to easily see, I'll walk you through the rest of the maps by domain, not by task. The items currently found in the social behavioral science domain are now found in 8 out of 10 domains. The 2 domains where we did not identify items from social behavioral science were law and ethics and program management. Here, you can see where the items currently found under epidemiology are found on the new content outline. We just looked at environmental health in more detail earlier. The only domain where we did not identify environmental health items was health equity and social justice. Items currently classified as health policy and management are found in every one of the new domains. Biostatistics items are primarily found in the domain Evidence-Based Approaches to Public Health. Public health biology maps to public health biology and human disease risk, as well as evidence-based approaches to public health, program planning and evaluation, and policy in public health. Systems thinking items map to every domain. Communications and informatics map to 6 out of our 10 domains. Diversity and culture items map to all of our new domains. Leadership items map to 6 out of 10 domains. Program planning items map to all of our domains except for public health biology and human disease risk and policy in public health. Ethics and professionalism items map to 4 out of our 10 domains. And finally, the items found under our current domain general principles map to each of the new domains. To put it all together, here is a mosaic of how all the tasks map between the domains. And I realize this is a little hard to read since we had 13 domains in the current content outline, which run across the top, and it's just a little bit too much for the screen. I'll stop here just for a moment, and then we'll move to a similar screen with just the 5 core domains. Here are the 5 core domains in our current content outline mapped across the 10 new domains. And as you can see, except for biostatistics, most of the 5 core areas are spread throughout the new domains. Please keep in mind, as we look at all this, we mapped the items currently in the item bank to the new tasks and domains so that we could identify where we had gaps and where we needed to write new items. The mapping process was not intended to be a definitive crosswalk because we're always updating our item bank. That said, the mapping process was somewhat dependent on the opinion of the reviewers assisting with this process. Some questions could easily map to more than one domain, but we only allowed one for the purposes of the analysis. So the reviewers were forced to make a choice. But overall, we were really pleased that there was a robust overlap between the old domains and the new. I think that we've shown there are many similarities between the 2 content outlines, but certainly there will be some changes. As we saw earlier, we evaluated the items in our current item bank, and while the vast majority were deemed relevant to the new content outline, 72 items were removed from the item bank. It's a small number, but it's a change nonetheless. We did have some tasks for which we had no items in our item bank. We had 25 with none, and another 35 or so with only 1 or 2. These are the tasks on which we are focusing our item writing efforts this year. We have a group of 30 trained item writers who have already submitted items to fill the gaps. We will continue to write additional items over the next year. This shows by domain the proportion of items for which we are writing new questions by domain. We had the largest shortage in the domains communications, program management, and program planning. Keep in mind, there's some tasks and domains where we're always naturally low in items. Some tasks are simply harder to write items for than others. But this slide does illustrate a bit of a shift in the content of the CPH exam. As we begin to communicate the change with candidates, we'll be posting this FAQ on our website. Is the new exam going to be easier or more difficult? The CPH exam is routinely updated each year and has a natural variation in the difficulty of each question. Anchor questions allow us to adjust for these small fluctuations in difficulty. The passing score is set to assure that the competent examinees pass and receive the CPH credential. In the end, the overall level of performance required to pass the exam is not changing. We realize the change, or at least the perception of change, may cause some angst among candidates. We'll be updating the study resources section of our website very soon to alert candidates about the new study resources that will be available. We always suggest candidates start by reviewing the new content outline to determine which topics of each section seem familiar and which do not. And this review is a good first step to determine where to start studying. We will also have an updated set of sample questions available by fall 2018. The sample questions are intended to give the candidates a preview of the format of the questions. Next, we suggest candidates take the practice exam. The practice exam is a 50-question exam of items drawn directly from our item bank. Candidates can take the practice exam as many times as they wish, and each time they'll receive a detailed report with the results. The practice exam is an excellent way for the candidates to determine how prepared they feel to take the actual exam. Webinars on each of the new domains are being planned for the fall. They'll be recorded and posted online following their original presentation date. The Association of Schools and Programs of Public Health is updating their current study guide. The new version focused on the new content outline will feature practice tests, study tips, and sample questions, and it will also be available by fall. APHA is also developing a print-based study guide, which will be available in November 2018. Finally, APHA and the University of South Florida are hosting a review course on Saturday and Sunday before APHA in San Diego. Faculty at the Learning Institute will review each of the domains over a 2-day period. I hope today's presentation has been helpful and will give you information that you need to advise your students. We'll now use the rest of the hour to answer any questions you might have. Please go ahead and type your questions into the chat feature of your GoToMeeting session.